Welcome to today's episode of the Motherhood Mentor podcast. Today, we're talking a little bit more about what it looks like when a high functioner hits a hard season and how you often break quietly. So one of the things I've really noticed about my high functioning clients, these strong ones, these women, is when they hit a breaking point, it's so quiet and subtle that they don't even understand how deep and hard it is, especially at first. They have this tendency to not have these big, obvious, dramatic shifts, especially at first. In fact, they avoid those things because they're so practiced at holding yourself together, at minimizing your needs, at staying functional even when you're exhausted. And on the outside, everything still looks fine. You're getting shit done. You're showing up for everyone. You're holding the family or the business together. And what I have found is that most high functioners, they tend to not even know when they're burning out at first because there's that saying of you can't pour from an empty cup. And to me, I say bullshit. I watch women do it all the time. They are pouring and pouring and pouring from an empty cup, and they just keep running on fumes because this is actually part of the nervous system strategy of the high functioner. It isn't shut down. It isn't break down. It isn't act out. It is, I will hold myself together. I will double down on my consistency, on my efforts. I will look even better. And that's not about looks. It's like you start falling apart a little bit emotionally and mentally, and you start seeing it come out sideways, usually in other areas. Like it might not even be coming out in the area where you think it will. Like a good example for this is when women are burning out in their business, sometimes where they see the smoke first is in their marriage or in their motherhood. So they double down their efforts on the business or on motherhood or on marriage, never really addressing and assessing where the pressure buildup is. Burnout for a lot of high functioners is not, it's both a lack of something that you need and too much of something that you don't need. There's this pressure that's building up, and you are so good at holding and handling pressure, and you can do it for so long without even looking like it's happening or even noticing or feeling that it's happening. A lot of times the warning signals are quiet. They're subtle. It can look like emotional numbness. So this feeling of like flat, tired, disconnected, a low level dissociation where like you're in the room, but you never really feel like you're in the room. You're showing up, but you don't really feel there. A lot of moms will describe this as like, I feel disconnected from my kids and I want to feel more present. You lose your sense of presence because you start emotionally feeling numb. And emotions are what make us feel alive and connected. It's like, it can feel like there's this fog around you, like you're on Christmas morning and you're watching all of it happen, but you're not really feeling it. You don't feel emotionally connected. Sometimes with burnout, especially when it's happening, there's a quiet resentment. You start noticing how much you carry or how much someone else isn't carrying. You start noticing how little support you have, how rarely anyone checks on you. Not because people don't care, but because people assume she's fine, she always is. And they're not wrong, right? And this one's really big. A lot of times you either double down on this identity or you start to have identity fatigue and you start to feel sorry for yourself, which high functioners hate. They hate feeling sorry for themselves and they really hate when other people feel sorry for themselves. But you start having these thoughts of like, it would be nice. Wouldn't it be nice to just not care? And yet you don't know how to care any less. It's like, how do people get away with this? What if I just could care less? But you don't know how to stop caring. And a lot of times you want to just start caring more. And a lot of times when you break, when you have this burnout that happens, it's not because you were weak. It's because you've been strong for way too long that you've become rigid. Think of a building, a bridge. When they're building bridges, they can't just make them rigid because if they are rigid, they actually become more fragile. But the more, if they have some flexibility, if they have some give, if they have the ability to pivot and move a little bit, that actually makes them sturdier, stronger, because they're not rigid, but also they can't be flaccid. They can't have no strength. They can't just be this puddling, like wilted flower of a person. And this is the same with you. You can't just be rigid and strong. You also have to learn how to be flexible, how to bend. And part of that is finding your vulnerabilities, sharing your vulnerabilities, paying attention to your compromised spaces and places in your life, which you have. But you're all about optimizing. So you tend to rush the process when it comes to healing. You try to optimize the process instead of actually slowing it down to figure what the problem is. You would rather intellectualize the shit out of this and figure it out and fix it. But the reality to healing from high functioning and healing from perfectionism is that you have to slow things down and actually feel it. Actually be in relationship to the thing to figure out what is needed, what is desired here, what's working and what's not working. I see this so often that high functioners don't need grit. They don't need to be taught grit. You have grit. But what a lot of high functioners and the highly ambitious don't have is when and how to quit, how to know when to call it, how to know when to say, this isn't working and it's not because I need to double down my efforts. It's because this isn't mine, or I need help with this, or this isn't even something I want to keep trying at. They won't accept failure. And so they never allow themselves to have these moments of feeling like a failure, of admitting defeat. And this is actually what sometimes causes burnout. And I'm not saying we have to quit the thing, but we do have to admit that the current way that we're doing it doesn't work for us. I see this super consistently, especially in marriages and in relationships, and especially in businesses. You want to double down so hard on not quitting that you're never giving yourself the permission to slow down and say, the way that I'm doing my business has to stop. I need to quit doing it this way because it doesn't work for me anymore. You don't allow yourself to slow down and go, ouch, that hurts. Ouch, this isn't working. You're just like, I'm going to push through. I'm going to push through. You have like a 75 hard approach to life. And there's nothing wrong with that for a season or for a reason. But you can't feel when you've been doing that, not out of a way of expansion, but out of this constant obsessive pressure. So many high functioners, your perfectionism has become this unlivable pressure on your chest, and you always feel like you're running late and you never feel like you have time or energy or capacity, and you're everywhere but nowhere, and it never feels good enough. Perfectionism is not necessarily a bad thing. I love my perfectionism. My perfectionism is the thing that looked at my motherhood, my marriage, the way that I was living my life and said, this isn't good enough for me. I deserve better. It's perfectionism is the part of you that sees the gap, that sees this is where things are and this is where they could be. This is where things should be. Perfectionism is gas in the tank. Perfectionism is this undeniable hunger, this undeniable, I always see how things could be just a little bit better. And that can be a beautiful thing that allows you to show up and make the world a better place, to show up as a better mother, to show up and make a business that's deeply impactful, to make a marriage that you love being in that doesn't just survive. And it can be this permission, it can be this ambition and this hunger. What so many people experience when they are ambitious, when they are high functioners, is that you haven't learned how to feel content, how to feel when and how and where enough is enough. You haven't learned how to leave yourself alone. When and how to stop optimizing and start enjoying and making it more fun or easy or playful. You're always focused on everything going wrong and fixing it. And it has you missing everything that's going right and enjoying it and taking it in. It's like you've built all this success, but you don't get to feel it. You don't get to take it in. It's like you've baked this beautiful big chocolate cake and you won't eat it. And but you won't say that because you're only supposed to be grateful. So you're always just good and grateful, except something deep inside of you is scared. Or you don't feel this hungry permission for ambition. You feel starved and deprived, and you wonder if you'll ever feel content. It's either too much or not enough. That is what often happens for high functioners, especially what leads us to and what keeps us in burnout. And I am always interested, not just in the healing and coming back from burnout, because that is where a lot of women find me, right? Is like there's some level of burnout, and that doesn't always look like crashing and burning. That just looks like they finally tell the truth about like, this doesn't work. Or they finally see and smell the smoke that they've been ignoring because they've just been silver lining it. They've just been like, oh, look, I'm on fire. And it's like, yeah, if it feels like you're on fire, that's not a good thing. Like, is this a fun fire or is this like terrifying? The marriage is on fire. The business is on fire. Like that, we don't want to feel that way. But a lot of times what happens is like we only focus on how do we get out of burnout? What I am so interested in learning and executing in my life, both personally, but then helping my clients with professionally, is how do we prevent burnout? And one of the most powerful ways is giving ourselves permission to have these prescribed burns. I literally mean this. Find ways to have these prescribed burns in your life where you are checking in on what is not working, what doesn't feel good, what feels like too much, what feels like too little. Where is there smoke? Slow down and pay attention. And then you have to slow it down and you have to build awareness before you fix it. That's the key. That's the thing that's going to be really hard for you, is to not go in and fix it right away, but to sit with it, to be with it. Because what happens for many high functioners is we go in, especially perfectionists, we see a problem, we fix it. We see a problem, we fix it. The problem is you're never getting deep enough to the right problem. You just keep slapping Band-Aids on it. And Band-Aids aren't bad for trauma care. Like if you're bleeding out, we need to bandage that baby, right? If you're seeping out, we need to bandage that baby. But a lot of you are bandaging things that need air and room to breathe. Some of you are putting pressure on things that need the pressure removed. Like think of like a massage. Sometimes we need to get in there and like massage it and give it pressure. And sometimes we need to learn that like, oh, the reason this muscle hurts isn't because it needs massaged. It's because there's a weakness and I need to go build a correct muscle. Otherwise, this ache, it's going to keep coming back because the reason this hurts is because I have this physiological pattern. And if I don't correct that, I'm just going to keep massaging this sore muscle that's over functioning because something else in my life is under functioning. That's the thing that I love about somatic work, especially somatic parts work, is like we slow the process down and we figure out what's the actual pattern. Instead of just like massaging this one sore thing, we're going, what is the pattern? What is the overall thing that's happening? Because sometimes, most of the time, any problem is just under or over functioning of a muscle, of an emotion, of a repression, of a personality trait or an identity or conflict or boundary, right? A healthy boundary meets and matches what's happening. It's not over responding, but it's not under responding. Nervous system work. It's a nervous system that is dynamically alive, that has stability and strength, and it can be rigid when it needs to. It can die on this hill when it needs to. It can fight. It can run. It can also slow down. It can also soften. It can move towards a person. It can move away from a person. It can move towards a person with intensity and backbone, or it can move towards a person with a softening, with a connecting, with a relating. That is dynamic aliveness. And that That is what keeps people out of burnout. So often, burnout is happening because you know how to run hard. You don't know how to take walks and take a nap and rest and slow down. And that doesn't mean that you don't have seasons of push. It doesn't mean that you stop running. It means that you have to feel, and it also means that you have to fuel your capacity. If you want to keep giving this much, great. You're going to have to learn how to receive more help, more support, more peer accountability, more discernment, more energetic and relational boundaries. If you want to give more and pour out without burning out, you have to build what pours into you. You have to build capacity, not only self-contained, especially for high functioners. Like, you're already great at having self-contained capacity and coping. You're great at coping strategies. You're less great at building a life where you also receive, where you also have rest, where you also have reciprocity, where you also have moments or seasons where you collect, where you slow down, where you pause, where you reconsider, where you have creativity and play and fun pouring into you that builds your capacity. You have to learn how to say no to good things for the wrong season, or figuring out what it is you really, really want, because what you want changes. So you have to learn how to quit. You have to learn how to call it, how to slow down, how to witness what needs to change, what needs to shift. That is such a pivotal part of healing this high functioning. It's not no longer being functioning or not showing up for people. I hate there's like that, like, I'm in my villain era when you're healing from people pleasing and overgiving. It's like, I don't know about you. I want to be generous. I want to live a more generous life than what I live right now. I want to be more generous with my time, my energy, my money, my capacity. But the way that I do that is not by burning out. It is by building myself up to have even more to give, because I have even more in my system. I have more stability in my system. I have better resilience in my system. I have a better metric and relationship to what I have to give, and making sure that I'm not giving out of a deficit, or that if I am, because let's be honest, there's seasons of motherhood that ask of me more than what I feel I can give. And so I have to look at those seasons and say, okay, what can support me? What can hold me? Where can I build up my capacity? For example, I'm in a new season where I can feel and I can see that my margin for error is smaller with my time, with my energy, with my physiology. Like, if I'm not eating right, if I'm not drinking enough water, if I'm not moving my body, I don't have the capacity to show up in the arenas where I'm showing up and in the way I want to show up, especially motherhood and homeschooling right now, which is taking a ton of capacity away from my business. So if I want to keep doing my business in this season, I have less margin, especially for time, for emotional, mental distractions, especially social media. Social media really hasn't been an issue for me in the last few seasons. And now in this season, I'm realizing I can't do what I used to do because it doesn't work anymore. I can't keep expecting myself to perform in this area at the same level and when I say perform, I actually mean that I had to stop consuming social media in this season because it wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving who I was as a person, but it also I really was looking and I was like, how is this serving my business for me to consume? It's not. I'm still figuring out what those boundaries look like, but I realized they needed to be more structured. I needed to have better boundaries with my time and energy and attention because I have less to give. I do, because I'm pouring it out in other areas. And that yes also means a no somewhere. That's that little mini burnout. That's that prescriptive burn where I couldn't just keep saying, I've got this, I'm good, because I know how to just keep going. But it will start coming out sideways. It'll start coming out sideways somewhere. And usually it will burn the very people that I'm trying to love. It usually will hurt my family and my kids and my husband first, then my friendships, and then usually it'll come out in my business. So I just had to look at, does this actually serve me? Is this actually working? And so give yourself permission in this season to have this mini prescriptive burn of, this might work for a short season, but you've got to tell yourself the truth when you've been using a short-term strategy for a long-term solution. And there's times where we just need to get through it. I get it. I've had those moments. I've had those seasons where you just got to get on the other side of it and then you'll sort some shit out. But some of you have taken that on as an identity, and that has been your go-to high functioning state for as long as you can remember. I'll just keep figuring it out as I go. I'll just keep running and running and running and running. And eventually you will hit a wall and it will be detrimental. And usually parts of you or relationships that you didn't want to lose, you usually lose. I've seen that in women's lives. And I saw it almost happen in my life, especially before I found coaching, where I was like, oh, I can't keep expecting myself to do this and have it work long term. Like, it worked for a reason, it worked for a season, but it doesn't work as a stability, as a life strategy. So I hope this feels encouraging. I hope it gives you some language that you feel seen and understood of, like, that's what's been going on. If you need help with this, if you need support with this is exactly what we do in coaching. This is exactly what we address, where we help you figure out how to actually show up in this. But either way, if you need resources, if this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Send me a DM of, like, what you took away from this episode, what you loved about it, what you're struggling with. Send it to a girlfriend, send it to a friend, talk about it with her. And if you love this, would you follow, leave a quick review? It really helps me. It helps the podcast grow. And I will see you next time.